All right, you want some?
Hey, give me some silence.
Room tone, as they say. You got everything you need?
And more. Yeah.
All right. Hello and welcome to another episode, a live episode of Dude Is This Thing On? I'm Tyler Daswick, and on the other side of Spider-Man's penis is Emilio Cariotti.
Gross. And technically this is not a live episode. We're not doing this live. We're just doing this in the same room.
Yeah, we're in person.
It's live for us. It's not live for anybody else. That's not what live means.
It's live for the people that matter, I guess.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, my dad's going to be really angry when he finds out he doesn't matter.
Amelia, we have a good show for the people today. We are going to do an opener on Kevin Hart and talk about the Oscars host controversy, I guess it is now. And then we are fresh off a viewing of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And so we are going to devote our featured segment to a full review of that. And then we're gonna end with some Battlefield 5 talk.
Yeah, and others. There's some. I mean, I was also playing a little bit of Spyro. And I have I have a bit to say about that as well, because I've come to a really depressing realization.
What?
Well, I don't want to. We'll talk about that later.
Oh.
You ask me in 20 minutes, and I'll tell you.
All right. Well, let's. Man, I'm thrown. Okay.
All right.
Let's talk about Kevin Hart though. We brought this up briefly as we were going into the movie. For me, the context of his hosting gig, he was gonna host the Oscars.
Yeah.
And then
he wasn't.
Yeah. Snoop's on Twitter dug up some past anti-gay jokes, insensitive jokes, and comments.
Apparently didn't have to search very hard.
Right.
There wasn't a lot of dick involved. More of a light dusting.
And the Academy said, hey, apologize for these. And he essentially said, no, I've already apologized, which he kind of did.
Right.
But since he wouldn't apologize again, they kicked him off. Or he essentially
resigned. He said, fuck this.
Yeah, he stepped down.
Bad out.
The whole kind of narrative came as a surprise for me. But when we were talking earlier, you said you kind of saw it coming.
Well, it's not that I saw it coming. It's just like I'm not really surprised. It's like you told me the comparison that I made was if they decided like this year the Oscars was going to be like, hey, Dave Chappelle's going to be hosting the Oscars,
right? And
everyone's like, wow, that's great. He's such a free thinking, like forward thinking dude, which he is. Like I think one of our earliest episodes was talking about the bird revelation and equanimity. And how forward-thinking that was, and how healing that was for the heart and soul of the nation. But he's made some jokes like making fun of transsexuals and making fun of gay people before. And they're funny, in my personal opinion, and some people disagree. So that would be like if they were like, oh, well, he's going to be hosting the Oscars, and then someone's like, oh my God, he said something disparaging about transsexuals. Like, well, I mean, it's not... The Oscars should have known better. Like, the Academy should have done its research, because they didn't have to do much, especially since he's, addressed it, quote unquote. He says he's apologized for it. I mean, the differencing of opinions there.
Yeah.
But at the very least, it has come up before that he has said things against the gay community. And I'm not the hugest Kevin Hart fan. Like, I've seen his comedy every now and again. I don't like any of his movies. I don't particularly think they're funny. They're really like lowbrow comedy, which is fine. Like, they have a great following, and if you're into that shit, like, go for it, man. Whatever makes you laugh, I don't care. But I don't really follow him too much as a comedian, so it wasn't like I was aware of that shit when he said it 8 or 9 years ago, or however long. It was kind of a while ago. But if he's already addressed it, it's kind of, you probably just put in like Kevin Hart bad into Google, and I imagine it probably would have come up at some fucking point, maybe the third or fourth Google search, like, down, right?
Yeah.
So kind of like, what the fuck, Oscars? Like, how are you caught off guard by this? You should have like vetted your like host better.
Yeah.
Like, how do you fuck that up? So a little bit of shame on them, a little finger wag on them.
It took people on the internet
10 seconds.
10 seconds to figure this out. I don't know why a social media crawl is not the standard for people vetting hosting gigs.
Yeah, especially just, I mean, this day and age. Like, if you're gonna buy like a Subway sandwich, they fucking vet you, you know? Like,
right.
We've had so many calamities like in the past. Speaking of Subway, like there you go, Jared. Like I feel like Subway would probably vet their people a little bit better for their next for their next dude, you know, the next guy or gal who's gonna be selling sandwiches. I feel like they would do an internet search on him, right? This is the Oscars. The Oscars is not new to controversy. The Oscars and controversy have been like married since the beginning. So I don't know. As for like his apology, I maybe read it. I can't fucking remember exactly what he said. It didn't seem very apologetic. It was more like, I said that. And that's fine. I don't remember if there's any controversy following his quote-unquote apology, but if there was ever going to be a time for someone to be like, hey, that's not an apology, it would have been 9 years ago when he actually made the quote-unquote apology. If it wasn't good enough 9 years ago, someone should have said that shit 9 years ago instead of being like, that apology that you made sucked. Okay.
Right.
That was 9 years ago, Kevin Hart. Like, what do you want today, Kevin? You can't... It's not that I feel like I don't know why I have to say this, but we're living in this fucking day and age. I don't hate gay people. I love gay people, so I just have to preface that before I say anything. I don't agree with Kevin Hart making fun of gay people like that. If they weren't particularly good jokes, they were more just like, if my son's gay, I'll kill him. Haha. Cool, dude. Like, shit. All right, check, please.
Right.
But like, if you were gonna chastise him for it, you should have done it before. And what he's saying now is, hey, I'm a different person. And you can't really call bullshit on that. You kind of just have to be like, okay, maybe he is a different person.
Yeah.
You kind of have to give the guy a second chance if he's saying, like, I've changed and I've learned from that. I mean, maybe it would have been good if he did a second apology, but he felt like he didn't need to because it was something that he had done in his past. I don't know. I mean, there's stuff there, but in this day and age, people don't get second chances. If they do, it's usually marred. I mean, look at Louis C.K. is performing comedy shows in New York, and people are not happy about it. You know,
right?
You know?
I don't know what kind of answer you'll have for this, but why did you want to talk about this on the show? The
Kevin Hart thing. I mean, I knew that you weren't that like caught up with it, and I honestly don't have a personal stance with it.
Well, I know like you're a student of comedy.
Yes.
And
I do. I've studied the tutelage of many comedians.
and you pay attention to this, and I think of this, and I'm not sure if we've talked about it on the show, but I know we must have talked briefly about the James Gunn Guardians of the Galaxy stuff.
I don't think we talked about it on the show. I'm not as caught up with that, but
I know that you must follow all of that and be paying attention to it, and you have to think about that in terms of the jokes that you write and think about and all
dude. I'm sure there's some bad shit that I'm sure. I know one joke in particular, and I won't ever delete it because, I mean, it's a fucking mistake that I made. All right, man. Right. It happens. There's one joke in particular that I haven't read in a while, but if I went back and read it, I'm sure it probably isn't that fucking great.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, as a comedian, which I'm not, but as someone who occasionally says funny things to other people in the room now and again, you're going to say some stupid shit every now and again. Kind of comes with the territory. I have said some stupid shit where I was like, oh, fuck, that did not come out the way that I thought. Yeah. Or I thought that was funny, but I've learned like, oh, there's other people that may not fucking think that's funny. And at a certain point, like as someone who likes comedy, and for people who are actual like paid comedians, part of getting paid is making people uncomfortable. It's through that uncomfortableness that the truth can come out. Comedians are writers in their own way, as important as journalists, in my personal opinion. They are able to look at something and say what it really is, like what it is stripped down naked. And that is one of the most important things as a liberal, democratic, quote-unquote society that we are. Comedians and journalists, I think, are two of our most invaluable, and musicians probably are our most invaluable critics. And some of that, like I said, comes with saying things that are incredibly harsh. And if there's a point to it, if there's a real reason behind it, if you're trying to make the world a better place by making that joke, then it's important, but if you're just saying you're gonna hit your son if he starts kissing dudes, there's not much to be gained. There's not a lot to learn from that one. It just the only thing I learned from there is that he's a bit of a dick, you know.
Right.
And I'm like, cool. Kevin Hart's a bit of a dick. I'm not that broken up about it because I'm not a big Kevin Hart fan, but
right.
Also shame on the Academy. Like, fuck you. Like, honestly, fuck you. You should have known better.
Yeah.
Do your fucking research. It's not that hard. 15 minutes would have saved you so much agony over this. And who did they get to replace him? Like,
they haven't had anyone yet.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
When Oscars are coming up in like 8 weeks or something. March or something, usually.
End of February.
End of February. And they don't have anyone. I figured they would have like plugged Wanda Sykes or something. Who has her own fucking controversy? Look up the State House dinner, like 2007 or something like that. Not great. She bombed. Like, it happens. It happens to the best of us. It happens to the worst of us. You know.
Yeah.
It makes us human.
I think you make an awesome point. I think everyone makes mistakes on the internet.
Yeah,
you know?
Especially.
You talk about your own mistakes on the internet. I've made mistakes on the internet.
Oh yeah, you got that thing pulled, or you took off the app.
I had an article pulled in the past year. Like it happens, but I think that's an important part of gauging and kind of like taking the cultural temperature of, okay, this was too hot. Like, let's pull it back.
Pull it back.
You know, it's like kind of too hot for TV sort of stuff. Like, I think
but your kids are gonna love it.
It's a prime. I think that stuff matters. I think that if everyone played it safe, we wouldn't progress.
This would be a boring fucking world,
right? And that's why even Dave Chappelle, who's in his 40s, 50s?
He's probably like 50 by now, I think.
Yeah, like
early 50s.
Like, he gives permission for other people to go 80% as far.
Mm-hmm.
And since he's 100, then it's like, oh, okay, maybe that was too much, but this guy goes 80, I think I'm gonna be okay with that. Yeah. He gives other people permission to push the boundary to a lesser degree, but they're still pushing it.
Yeah,
I think that matters.
It's cliche, but you need people on the front lines pushing the boundaries.
Yeah.
And they're going to catch heat for that. And Dave Chappelle's caught heat for that so many fucking times. He almost lost his career. He's having a renaissance right now. He's having a comeback right now. You only do that when you've stumbled and fallen. Right. You have to pick yourself up and dust yourself off. And so many other comedians have done that too. Like, and you know, honestly, it's like just like Origin of Species. Weeds out the week. The good comedians will see themselves out, or see themselves through, and the bad comedians will see themselves out. Like, if you don't come back, maybe it wasn't meant to be. You know?
Right. And I'm not worried, and that's why I'm not worried about Kevin Hart.
Kevin Hart's not going anywhere. He's one of the biggest comedians.
Yes.
I mean, if Louis C.K. jizz on his tummy, Louis can go back to the Comedy Cellar and still make 80% of the people laugh, fucking hats off, dude. I mean, I don't, like I said, I don't feel like I shouldn't have to say this, but blocking a woman in your office and then jizzing in front of her without her permission, not okay. It's not okay, Louis. Don't call somebody and masturbate on the phone. It's not okay.
Right.
If he can make a comeback, then Kevin Hart is fine.
Yeah.
Just don't say any more, like, gay shit for a while.
Yeah.
Or ever, for that matter.
Yeah. Any lingering thoughts on that? I feel like...
Not really. It was one of those controversies that was literally a flash in the pan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, flash in the pan. Got that one right. Nailed it. It was one of those controversies where it was like, and it resolved itself. Kind of like the James Gunn thing, because the James Gunn thing kind of was just like, well, that's over.
Yeah, but I feel like his punishment was a little more, I mean, kicked off of, one of the biggest
it was a little bit more severe for something that wasn't, I mean, I can't remember what his fucking comments were. They weren't great. Pedophilia or something
He made a pedophilia joke.
Yeah.
And
that's dicey.
It was like
I don't know.
Ago.
I don't know why it's dicey, but for some reason, pedophilia is super not okay. Especially a decade ago, I feel like that would have been totally fine. But I mean,
the one thing it still does is freak me out about the internet, and that people,
it's got a long arm.
There's no grace on the internet, which is hard. Like, okay, I had an article pulled almost a year ago now.
Yeah.
Like, definitely feel like I've learned things. I write differently. I think of angles differently. and I've definitely adapted the way I do things because of that experience. Yeah. And it's my, it's my hope that doesn't come back to bite me. Yeah. And I just think of these.
It's good to get this in. It's good to get this on recording.
Right.
This is Exhibit A and B for our defenses of whatever stupid shit we do in 20 years, Your Honor. Let's just go on the record. Future race of humans who are ruling over us. Yeah, we were good people once. Yeah.
But I think of these guys too. Of they must have had similar adaptations, and it just it worries me a little bit to see that there's still a penalty.
Right. There's a penalty for personal growth, and it's like, well, I mean, that's because the internet's so fucking perfect, isn't it? Everyone on the internet's so fucking... They're so perfect. And they don't have to prove that they're perfect. I forget who said this, but, like, you don't have to prove fucking shit on the internet. You can be a god and say you're a god, and people will fucking believe it. You don't have to... That's where the next religion's coming from. Everyone thinks Scientology's taken over, but it's going to be some dweeb on the internet who convinces people he's the fucking messiah. And then we're all going to be bowing down to, like, the Twitter bird or some bullshit like that.
Jesus. All right, well... That's we still don't have an Oscars host. Last I checked, they're gonna do a revolving door of like various comedians and personalities. That was like their latest pitch.
That'll be a disaster.
Yeah,
you need one band leader. You can't just have like a revolving door where Ringo comes out and does Octopus's Garden. It doesn't fucking work.
Right. But things that do work.
Yeah. Speaking of the Oscars.
Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. We watched it. We got out of it literally probably 45 minutes ago.
Yeah, about.
Yeah.
Got home about 45 minutes ago.
Dude, this is in my top 10 movies of the year.
Yeah, it snuck in right at the fucking end of the year.
Yeah.
Like, we are the 22nd.
Yeah.
We're days away from the new year, and boom, here we go.
Yep.
One of my favorite movies of the year.
Yeah, in a year where we got a Disney Pixar movie with The Incredibles, we got a Wreck-It Ralph movie that was like well reviewed and like well received.
Haven't seen it.
Good, fine, it's fine.
Yeah, but that sucks because the first one was actually pretty good.
Yeah. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, best superhero movie of the year in a year that we got Black Panther.
Yep.
And Avengers Infinity War, and the best animated movie of the year when we got an Incredibles movie.
Incredibles movie, the first time in decades.
This movie is so good, dude.
It's might be my favorite superhero movie. Might be my favorite.
Really?
Yep, might be my favorite superhero
movie.
What's
like in the pantheon for
you?
As
far as superhero movies go, I was always a big fan of the original Punisher. I know it's not the best movie, but it's very campy. Shit. It's campy, but I fucking like it. But that's number 10. You know, that's a guilty pleasure.
That's like your wild card.
That's a guilty pleasure. That's a guilty pleasure. Obviously, some of my favorite superhero movies are the first two Spider-Man by Sam Raimi. So good. Nobody likes the third one. I really don't remember the third one all that well because I was very young when I seen it. That's why it's bad. Yeah, exactly. It's not a very memorable movie. Other really good superhero movies. I'm actually like kind of a big fan of the original Superman movies.
Dude, of course.
Christopher Reeve, they're great, man.
Awesome.
They got this like panache to them and everything. The Dark Knight not the Dark Knight Rises, just the Dark Knight.
Yes.
Very good. I'm not a huge fan of the Dark Knight Rises, but whatever.
Yeah.
What else is at least up there? I'm totally blanking, but I know. I really, really like the first Avenger, Captain America. That is a lot of people. Yeah. A lot of people don't actually like that movie, but that is one of my favorite. And then, of course, the first Iron Man.
Yep.
Very good movie. Other than that, the rest of the superhero movies aren't fantastic, like the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah.
All the DC movies are garbage. Like
totally.
Man of Steel is like dog shit. Anyone who says otherwise is also dog shit. Superman versus Batman is like one of the worst movies I've ever seen. Yeah. I didn't see the Avengers. Wonder Woman was not good. It was okay. I got a strong female lead, whatever.
That's the common hot take of this podcast, Wonder Woman. Not that great of a movie.
No, it's not that great. It's kind of boring.
I'm glad it exists.
Yeah, it's good.
But it's not that good.
Like Black Panther, I'm glad it exists, but it's not that great. It's not that great of a movie. I will say Black Panther is better than Wonder Woman, but whatever. I haven't seen Aquaman. I'm not planning.
Did I tell you I saw Aquaman?
No, I know, and you said it was garbage. You said it was hot garbage.
Hot trash, dude.
Stupid. You know what I heard? I was was listening to the radio doing something in my fucking car, and This is just like, they were really reaching for straws.
Okay.
Was the radio host that comes on, and he's like, boo, da, 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 do, 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 and takes this fucking needle off the record. And he's like, hey, what's up, everybody? You should go see Aquaman, because it's really great. And Jason Momoa, who's, Game of Thrones, fine, whatever. He seems like a really cool dude, actually. I'd grab a beer and...
He's a bro.
Yeah, a total bro. He's Twine or something. He's Pacific Islander. Seems super dope. He's like, yeah, Jason Momoa, the first biracial actor to be in a superhero movie. And I'm like, wow, good for him. Great for him. Cool. I just, what are you going to put that on a plaque? Just be happy that you're like the star of the movie,
Right.
Why does he have to be the first biracial? We've already had...
This podcast is biracial, all right?
This podcast, yeah, right? I don't fucking need a medal for that. Why does he get, acknowledgement on some... Yeah. It's just stupid. And that summed up if that was the best thing that you could say about the movie, then it's not a good movie. I don't know what to tell you. So... Yeah, as far as good superhero movies go, this is actually one of my favorites. It is a gorgeous movie, aesthetically beautiful fucking movie. It's the first, with the exception of the Sam Raimi films, the only superhero film that I can think of, besides the 1966 Batman that has the pow and the pa and the ka-cha and the little animated thing. Yeah. This has actually the same feel to it. It's not as campy because you don't have Adam West being Adam West. Yeah. But it feels authentically like a comic book movie. And there's certain points in it where there's a chapter. There's chapters in it you would have issues of a comic book, where I don't want to give anything away, but there's one scene where he eventually, spoiler alert, becomes Spider-Man. And it's the two Spider-Mans, and you see him stuck on the glass, and there's the reflection of the actual Spider-Man, and then it turns into a comic book cover, and it drops on a desk. And that, it felt fucking amazing watching it. It's indescribable, this movie, because it's so chaotic, but that chaos works.
Yeah.
If you don't have any time and for some reason you've sat through 21 minutes and 56 seconds of this, just watch the fucking movie. If you can't listen to the rest of the podcast, it's really, really good. I recommend it, man. It's good for all ages.
Yeah. It's a good example of an animated movie that to exist in this form has to be animated.
Yeah, it has to be. Oh, you couldn't do this with action.
The action is so incredibly choreographed, and the way they stop it and start it and move it from one shot to another. Everything is so precise and beautiful, but also psychedelic and artsy.
Yeah, it's a trip. It is a trip.
Yeah. And there's all these kind of freeze frames to look like comic book panels.
Yeah. And the way that the camera moves from panel to panel.
Totally.
And, little speech bubbles and action bubbles happening in the background that are very subtle, but you don't miss them. And they'll pop up just very randomly. Something will happen and you'll totally expect a kapow, and you don't get that. But then something very small will happen, like a fork dropping on the table before, and you'll just get a little small action bubble that'll pop up clang clang. Yep. That's it. But the really big stuff might not have anything. It's just, god damn, it's fucking cool.
Yeah.
It's a cool movie.
Yeah, and so the visual style heightens the action. It also heightens the comedy. It's a really funny movie.
It's a really funny
movie.
One
of the great laughs of the movie is Spider-Man typing at a computer and the words clickety clack 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 clickety clack appearing next to him. Yeah. So great.
Yeah.
And so they take full advantage of, okay, we are a cartoon. Mm-hmm. And we're going to have a lot of fun with that. But we're also going to have all these really cool ideas of what does it mean to be Spider-Man? The emotional arc of all the characters are just really beautiful and cool. Yeah. It's smart, but it's also really, really funny. And also is a great action movie. It's a great superhero movie. It's a great comic book movie.
And it's very faithful to, even though this is, so I stopped reading comic books when I was a kid, but I was actually very into them when I was a kid. And my dad will remember if he's listening to this, he used to take me to comic book shops, and I have a big stack of old vintage comic books under my desk. Amazing. Cool. And Spider-Man was my favorite. I really liked Iron Man too, but Spider-Man was my favorite. Yeah. And I have probably 60 or 70, and I know people with real comic book collections if Kevin Smith, if you're listening, real comic book collections will scoff and be like, "Ooh, I have 2,000, nerd."
Right.
But I had like 60 or something that I collected over the span of like a year or two, and I used to just like read them over and over and over again. I don't know if this version of Spider-Man is an actual...
He is.
Okay.
He is.
I've never read it, but I feel like... Because I have read The Amazing Spider-Man.
Yes.
And I do know his origin story, obviously, and his costume and how he slings a web. Because it is different from other Spider-Men. That is very authentic. So I can imagine that this is very authentic to that character's story arc.
Yeah.
And there's like it follows, it's so different from the other Spider-Men and women, but it follows the same like story arc. What the hell is the thing? Like
it hits the same beats.
Peaks. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. But in a different way that's unique to that character, but it still evokes the same character development, even though he's going through like slightly different things in his life. And they do that so well for each of the Spider-Verse men and women, because if you don't know, the basic plot of the story is, thank you for giving me the nod of approval, is essentially a wormhole opens up in New York for various reasons, and different Spider-Men and women from across the Spider-Verse are sucked into the same sort of universe, and it's their journey home. And so each one of them, they do that like kind of stereotypical trope where each one of them is slightly different than the other, and they have their own like personal quirks. But each one is so like authentic and funny in its own way, and like ridiculous in its own way, that I mean, you just get lost in it, man. Like, I was sucked into it for 2 hours and 13 minutes. I didn't check my phone. I didn't check my watch. I didn't even look over at you. You could have been a fucking ghost for all I knew. Yeah. Like, it really does suck you in.
Yeah. And they choose really, really out there Spider-Man. I saw this for the first time with a huge comic book junkie that I work with. And I asked him, like, okay, how obscure are these? So, these are going to be mild spoilers for the movie, but if you've seen a trailer,
you should know them.
You get Spider-Gwen, Gwen Stacy Spider-Man. You get Spider-Man Noir, who has a black and white comic. He's a private investigator and he kills people. Yeah. You get Spider-Ham, which
Spider-Ham and Gwen are the only two that I actually knew before this one. Like that I was familiar with.
And then there's one that I had no idea, but apparently is real.
Penny.
Penny Parker, who's an anime Spider-Man.
Interesting,
Spider-Woman, I guess. Yeah. Who has like basically her Spider-Man is a robot. Yeah. Like a mech. Yeah. Which is really cool.
Like, which is very like authentic to what like anime kind of is. You wouldn't have like just like a stereotypical web slinging person in Tokyo. It would be a fucking mech with like a big ass sword or some bullshit. Yeah.
So it's cool. I mean, not only because it gets you all these like really specific corners of the Spider-Man universe, but this is something I really appreciated the second time. They all have really unique animation styles, and they all kind of come from different things. So Penny Parker and the anime style, we get shots in the movie that are like watching an anime. Like when she enters the robot suit, we get like the heightened speed and color, and
Japanese like characters come up, and that rushing fucking like bullet like broken glass thing that happens when you move really fast in anime. And the same thing with the Noir guy, like when he jumps down the elevator, the cape is like flowing. It looks like something from Sin City, like exactly. It looks great. Damn it.
And Spider-Ham gets like the Looney Tunes style. Yeah,
and every time he swings a web, there's that like that slide whistle, like
right
noise.
Right, and so it lets them play with sound and visuals so much more, and that's all when that's all overlaid over the comic book. It looks so cool.
God, it looks fucking great.
It's great,
and the jokes work for every one of the characters. Funny, like in the way that makes sense for their character. Yes. Like the Japanese character isn't like cracking like 1930s wise or anything like that. That is dedicated to the 1930s wise guy like character, like the Spider-Ham like pulls out giant magnets and like drops anvils on people. That's like how he fights crime. He fights crime like Roger Rabbit. Not like regular fucking Spider-Man. And Gwen fights like a ballerina because she is like a dancer, and that's like her character. do a really good job.
So let me ask you this, because I think this is something the movie does really well.
Yeah.
Is Spider-Man was the first comic book I read. It was The Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah. It was one of the first. I wouldn't say it's the first.
Yeah,
though.
and The Amazing Spider-Man is in this movie.
Yes, he is.
But like, what to you is the appeal of Spider-Man? Because I think the movie captures it really well. Where I'm like, oh, this is the character I loved as a kid.
I think what the appeal is always for me is that of all the superheroes ever, Spider-Man is the most normal. He's the most human. He's the one that you can relate with the most.
Right.
Bruce Wayne is a normal dude, except for the fact that, you know, he's a fucking billionaire. So that's hard to connect with. Iron Man is a normal dude, except he's a fucking billionaire, which is hard to connect with.
Right.
You know, Doctor Strange is a normal dude, except for he's a fucking wizard, which is hard to like. Hulk is a normal dude, except he's fucking a scientist who turns green when someone kicks him in the nuts.
Right.
Like, the Punisher's a normal dude, except that he's a fucking non-vet. Like, it's all these things that, like, is so it's as part of them as the suit. But if you take away Spider-Man's suit, he's still a superhero. Right. You know, he's still a good, normal fucking person. He's a grad student.
Yeah.
Like, he has a wife. In a lot of comic books, he has kids. Sometimes that marriage fails. Sometimes he marries another fucking person.
Right.
There are comic books where he marries or dates Gwen Stacy, you know? Like,
yeah.
And so Spider-Man to me always felt like me.
Yeah.
And I always like that in my characters that I mean, especially video game characters, because from comic books and video games to me are very, very similar.
Yeah.
In the way that they play, in the way that they're like structured. Less so now, because now video games are really going towards like more mainstream cinema, and you hear people being like, it's just like a movie. But when we were kids, video games were much more like comic books, and they were very easy to transition over. In fact, one of my earliest video games was The Amazing Spider-Man on PlayStation 1, which the most recent version just came out, and I'm so jealous that I don't have fucking PS4 because I'd love to fucking play that game.
Yeah.
But to me, Spider-Man was me, just like the Master Chief is me, or you know, or any of those like characters where you get sucked into that person, and he's a blank enough slate and a normal enough person. I wouldn't say blank enough slate, but he's a normal enough person that you can be like, I could do this, and if only I got bit by a radioactive spider, could I also like sling web in a flat fucking city like Phoenix? You know, I don't have to be in New York. Maybe I could fight crime in the desert or something like that, and I'd be the tarantula. Yeah, that would be my fucking thing. And he's the only superhero that I know of that you can really feel like that.
Yeah, I think it's two things. I think the first is Spider-Man, most obviously of all the superheroes, loves being a superhero.
Yeah.
And so much in this movie, like, it comes out right and says it. It's like, don't get me wrong, I have to fight crime and I deal with all this stuff, but I love being Spider-Man. Spider-Man's awesome.
Yeah.
And I think that's all. Like, yeah, it would be super cool to be able to swing through a city and have all these cool superpowers and climb up walls and Spidey sense and all that. Like,
it's just cool.
That's awesome. It's just cool. And I think the movie captures that feeling really well. You get this kid who enters the world of Spider-Man and is learning the ropes of being Spider-Man, and on its surface he thinks being Spider-Man is going to be really awesome.
Yeah.
But the other side of it, and this is something that the sort of like, really I'd say he's a comic expert who I like saw the movie with the first time. He says Spider-Man has this really relatable tension of he is a hero because he feels guilty over the time he could have been a hero and he didn't.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
And that tension is something that doesn't occur to you right away when you think about, oh, wouldn't it be so cool to be a superhero?
Yeah, all of them have suffered tragedy. That's why they are heroes.
And that I think is such a cool scene in this movie where at this point we're just ruining it.
Yeah, spoilers.
But all the Spider-Men are in a room and they get in a circle and they're like, don't forget, like, we are all doing this because we lost somebody. And you're like, oh yeah, like there is that tension of, okay, I have all of these superpowers, but man, sometimes I wish I could just let it go. Yeah. And I didn't feel the tug to put the mask on and make the world a better place. I wish I could just be a grad student or be a kid going to middle school in this movie, or
being
a
divorcee.
Daily plan. Yeah, the divorcee, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think of all the characters that Peter B. Parker from The Amazing Spider-Man
right.
Really talks about that to the most, where he is very much begrudgingly and very much on the fence of, okay, I'm going to retire like any day now because this isn't fun anymore and I'm miserable.
Yeah.
And I'm not taking care of myself. Like, I can't be Spider-Man for much longer. And so his story arc is finding out that he can be Spider-Man and that he can fix the things that he's fucked up, because he was too invested in being Spider-Man.
Cool.
It's cool.
Cool arc in the movie.
Great arc for that character.
Yeah.
And you don't get that really in too many animated movies outside of Pixar, really. Right. It's the only studio that does that. Don't mention DreamWorks, I'll fucking punch you. but really outside of Pixar, you don't get that. And this is coming from a very more adult-orientated duo, I would say. They don't really do anything like kids. So, like...
Yeah. You're talking about
the Phil Lord and Chris Miller, which I'm a huge fan of their work. I don't know too much about them really, but I have seen it. Like I said, I've seen enough of their movies to really understand their style. Right. And I went into this movie almost completely blind. I saw the trailer 3 or 4 months ago when I saw The Incredibles 2 actually. Yeah. And the trailer for this came out, and I was like, that looks really cool. Like, I'd watch that. I didn't know it was by Lord and Miller, and as the lights were dimming in the theater, your last words to me before the movie came on, you leaned over and you were like, "Hey, by the way, this is a Lord and Miller film," and I turned to you and I'm like, "I'm in."
Yeah, and
that was it. And from that, I had no doubt, and I was very, very happy with the fucking movie. I had no doubt from the second Miller left your fucking mouth. I was like, in, sold. And it's exactly what you'd expect from two very, very good writers.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really, and this is something I appreciated a lot more the second time. And we talked about this before we got in the air.
Yeah.
It's a really complete script to the point where even the side characters like Peter B. Parker, the Amazing Spider-Man, Miles Morales is the main character, and he has an arc that's really well done.
Yeah.
But Peter B. Parker, who's probably the number 2, he has an arc. Gwen Stacy's probably number 3. She has an arc. I mean, it's really complete. And then all the kind of side fun characters.
Yeah. They have their own things too.
They have their little moments.
Yeah, they have their moments. The least one is probably being Spider-Ham, who very true to his character. Spider-Ham is a joke character.
Yeah.
He's more like Howard the Duck than he is an actual Spider-Man. The point of Spider-Ham is just to be like, hey, look at this funny fucking thing that we did on our spare time while we were actually doing Spider-Man comics. And so even he has his moments, but they're Looney Tunes moments, and they're so perfect to that Looney Tunes character that I'm sure the people who came up with Spider-Ham, I'm sure they watched this movie if they're still alive. I don't know how old that comic is, but I'm sure they were nailed it.
Right, but even he gets nobody's gonna take me seriously in this movie.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be taken seriously. But he has this great little action scene.
Yeah,
it was really funny and fun and true to his character, and it's such a good movie.
It's so good to see a family movie, and it's hard to you said this yourself, it's hard to remember that this is a family movie because I think the dialogue
it's good.
Well, no. I mean, there's good fucking family movies. I mean, look at The Incredibles. Incredibles 2 was a really good movie. Sure. This is better, but Incredibles 2 is a good movie.
It's really good.
But it's hard to remember that because the aesthetic is geared more towards at least young adult, if not even older. People our age, the music in the movie is hip-hop from the 90s mostly, and a little bit more new age, even though we're going through this weird 90s renaissance thing with hip-hop right now.
Yeah.
But one of the first songs that comes on is one of Biggie Smalls' songs. Would you ever think that was going to be in a
Hypnotized.
Yeah, would you ever think that is going to be in a PG movie? No, but it works because the character is so authentic to a kid who is he's a
Brooklyn native.
Yeah, he's a Brooklyn native, and Brooklyn is such. It's funny because my dad's from Brooklyn. And you wouldn't think it because
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, he's from a bad neighborhood of
Seriously?
He's from Red Hook.
Oh shit.
Which there's a lot of hip hop artists that are from Red Hook, and Red Hook it really now is kind of bougie, but even like 10-15 years ago was not good. There's a reason they call it Red Hook.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's funny. I'll tell you real fast. So, like,
okay, yeah.
My dad's childhood was actually really fucking cool. If he's listening, he's probably got a big grin on his face because it's the only cool thing about you, Dad. No, I love you. But he told me one time that the reason they call it Red Hook, and the actual reason they call it Red Hook is just because it's in the shape of this hook, and that's where a bunch of shipping and shit came in the 1900s.
Okay.
But the reason they call it Red Hook is because back in like the 20s, all the dock workers would use those like bailing hooks to like pull shit off of the docks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
When they'd go into the bars to drink, they'd get in fights and fucking kill each other with the hooks, and that's why it's called a Red Hook.
Wow.
So that's a great neighborhood for you to grow up in.
Wow.
But yeah, my dad is like a Brooklyn native, and Brooklyn kind of has like this like the Bronx kind of has this very like tough like look out for yourself kind of like mentality to it. And so this kid is very much like that too, where his dad's a cop, and as far as critics are concerned, he would be too young to listen to the musical stylings of Biggard Smollards, his full name. But he listens to it anyway, because fuck the system, you know? He tags graffiti, because fuck the system, you know? Like, fuck it, you know? He's just a kid in Brooklyn. I forget where I was going with this, but it's cool, and the music works with it. And
yeah, you were putting this into context among other movies for kids.
Yeah, like other movies for. Thank you, Tyler. That's why you're here.
Yeah,
keeping on track. Yeah, it's like it's not what you would expect from a kids movie, but I made this point in the car, and I liked it enough to bring it up again.
Yeah.
But a good PG movie or G movie shouldn't just be for kids. It should be for everyone. A good PG movie is good for all ages, right? Yeah. A bad PG movie or G movie is just good for kids, because kids don't give a fuck. Like, they're not going to pick up. They don't know who Biggie Smalls is, you know? They're not going to understand what tagging graffiti is or why that's, like, rebellious or anything like that. And so this does that. It does it really well. It's fucking good.
Yeah.
It's a good fucking movie.
And, you know, also, like, you don't think about it right away, but the main villain of this movie is Kingpin. Also gets his own little, like, fucking backstory.
Yeah, man, you feel for the motherfucker.
Yeah, like, and they do it so economically, so much that I think it's, like, almost a 2-hour movie.
A 2 hour, 13 minutes.
Oh,
surprisingly
really?
long for a kid's movie.
Wow,
Again,
honestly, though, like...
feature-length movie. Doesn't feel like it. Again, if I know a movie's not fantastic if I'm checking my phone or I check my watch.
Yeah.
You know? If I break it and I'm like, oh, how much longer is this? If I do that once or twice, okay. If I do that like 3 or more times, like there's a serious problem. I didn't even think about it. It wasn't until literally like the last couple minutes where I was like, man, I haven't checked my watch. I have no idea what time it is. And I'm like, fuck it, I don't care. Like, I'm not going to check my watch.
Yeah. And so this movie has a rogues gallery. There's Prowler, Green Goblin, who has a cool imagining.
They do. I feel like all the super villains have their own, with the kind of exception of Kingpin, who's always this big, rich, like, thug.
Yeah.
The Scorpion had.
He's right.
He's kind of like a Latin king.
Yeah.
Scorpion. It's like, all right, cool. Like, I'm in. He's like a bionic Latin king, Scorpion.
Right.
The Green Goblin is not.
He's like a giant monster.
He's a giant monster. He's not like Dr. Oz.
Man, that action scene.
At the beginning, it's great way to introduce him. Doc Ock is reimagined as a woman, which I don't know if there's a comic book with her as a woman.
I'm not sure.
I don't know. Unfortunately, we're not the biggest comic book men, but every single super villain,
they're imagined really well,
really well, and it works. I didn't see one and I was like, fuck that. Like, oh shit, you know?
Yeah, but I mean, even Kingpin has sort of like an emotional journey in this movie, and he has reasons for doing things. Mm-hmm. And, you know, even though this is sort of like a classic superhero scenario of, we've got this like mumbo-jumbo machine that's going to destroy New York City.
Yeah.
The reason for that machine existing
is very real and grounded.
Yeah. It's the kind of movie where they thought of everything.
Yeah. That is the benefit of having airtight writing. It is, there's not a single thing that I could complain about this movie. Maybe I was just hypnotized by the fancy colors, but this is your second viewing, and did you see anything you didn't like?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the second time, normally you can kind of start to poke holes.
Yeah, because you're not as, like, mesmerized by it anymore.
No, it actually, like, I felt so at ease from the first watch. I was able to just buy in all over again and be even more present in all my favorite parts. And just be like, oh, man, I love this part. I'm so excited for it. And you can just get there all over again.
That's a good story.
It was great.
That's a good story.
Yeah, it's awesome. We can move on to Battlefield, but
or whatever.
I know we'll probably do like a year in review pod, and this movie's a lock for my top 10, dude.
Yeah, easily. It's like, well, unfortunately, this wasn't a very great year for movies, but even if it had been,
I agree.
Oh, excuse me. Oh, we edited it out. Even if it had been like a good, strong year for movies, this honestly still would have probably at least gotten to the top 10.
Yeah.
Even if this was like 2009 or 10, whenever fucking like No Country for Old Men and There Will Be Blood came out, this might have beaten it. I don't fucking know. I will say I think this might be my favorite movie of the year.
Oof.
It might be my favorite movie of the year.
Yeah. It's honestly, it's not an uncommon opinion. I was listening to a Variety podcast, Variety, the trade magazine.
Oh yeah. Okay, like actual Variety.
And one of the features editors had it as her number one. Like,
it's good.
Damn.
Like, so this ties back to the Oscar thing that we were fucking talking about. So like, there's a lot of hubbub, if I could say that word, on the internet. Maybe there's a lot of hubbaloo about comic book nerds and their quest to get a fucking comic book movie to finally get an Oscar, maybe even Best Picture.
Right.
A Best Picture nomination.
Yeah.
I know. A Best Picture nomination for a comic book movie. And they're gonna pick Black Panther, which if you've listened to the podcast, you will know a fine movie. Like, it's a plain Jane motherfucking Marvel superhero movie.
Right.
And here you go, another Marvel superhero movie from the same mind of the same fucking guy.
Yeah.
And it's 10 times better. Yeah. And a lot of people will be like, oh, well, they're only picking Black Panther because there's a black guy and we're in this post-racial... Whatever, man, fuck you. Go back to your Klan rally. Like, if that's your thing... There's a black guy in this too. I'm just saying.
Black
the main
lead.
character, black lead.
Miles Morales is half black, half Latino.
Half Puerto Rican. It's like, it works on so many levels.
Yeah.
Did this movie come out before Aquaman? When did this drop? Because he might have been the first biracial lead.
Spider-Verse, December 14th. Aquaman, the 21st.
Yeah, fuck it. Fuck Jason Momoa. Fuck that guy. No, he's a great dude. But here you go. If that's your cup of tea and for some reason you just want the movie to win because you like really like black people and that's the only reason you like fucking Black Panther, here you go. You know, you can fucking vote for this one because not only does it have that racial aspect to it, that's your cup of tea, it's a way better movie and it's a way better superhero movie. If anything deserves to win Best Picture, it's honestly this might be the best movie of the year. I know it's not going to. It's a kids movie, a PG movie. I don't think it's ever won Best Picture.
Yeah, there's a lot against it even in the animated category.
I know.
It's Sony Pictures Animation.
Like, I know.
It's just a hard.
I know.
People
but
see
that's
Pixar.
Bullshit. That's the fucking bias against it. I mean, I don't like the Oscars. I don't.
No,
like the Oscars.
I'm with you.
It's crap. It's just it's a popularity contest. It's high school. It's senior year, like presidential elections all over again.
Yeah.
Choice words about that all these years later. But I mean, it's like, if anything deserves Best Picture, it might be this. I know it's a kids movie. I know it's an animated movie. I know it's a superhero movie. But really despite all those odds, it is the most fun that I've had in the theater all year.
Yeah.
Easily.
It's great. That's Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. We might be talking about it on our year-end episode. So look for some more talk on it later. But for our closing segment, you wanted to bring up Battlefield 5.
You've
been
others.
Playing it. Yeah,
so,
okay.
I mean, do you have any questions for me, Tyler?
Well, you had mentioned that your time with the game was fleeting.
Yes.
But there was also a greater narrative going on where a feature was added to the game.
Yeah.
And then almost right away taken
almost
out
right
again.
away. So this is gonna need a little. We don't have too much time. We can go fucking over.
That's
whatever.
okay.
Yeah. We're not in the same room very often.
Right.
So I'm gonna give you a little lesson about what TDK means. Do you know what TDK means No. TDK stands for time to kill, and there's time to death too, if I remember correctly. But time to kill in a video game is about how fast it takes two players. So if two players bump into each other, how fast does it take for one of them to die?
Okay.
So that's very important for video games because it has to do with like pacing. Not so much for single player games because pacing really revolves around like plot and story and narrative around that. But for multiplayer games, you don't have any of that shit. Really, if your narrative is, oh, I've bumped into a guy, let me kill him. Cool, I've killed him. Or fucking this game's horseshit, he killed me. Put on the controller to the TV. Usually one of those two like options.
Right.
So when the game came out, like about a month ago now, I think Battlefield 5 came out. There was a lot of hubbaloo, if I could say that word again.
Careful.
Man, the FCC is going to crack down on us. There was a lot of uproar about time to kill in the game, and I personally was actually in the uproar camp because coming off of Battlefield 1, the time to kill was like a lot lower. Like it took more. Essentially, time to kill means it essentially takes more bullets to kill somebody. If you're doing, it takes like 5 body shots or 3 headshots or whatever to kill somebody, right?
Okay.
In Battlefield 5, it's like 3 body shots, 2 headshots, which is not a lot in a game where you have 64 players with automatic weapons, like shooting at each other. You die a lot in Battlefield 5. It's almost in the
multiplayer. You mean?
In the multiplayer, it's one of the only games where I jumped immediately into the multiplayer because, let's face it, DICE and EA, they don't give a fuck about single player.
Yeah.
This Battlefield single player, the campaign, was actually supposed to be one of the better ones in years. I played through the first mission and I was like, it's the same as Battlefield 1. And Battlefield 1 was a literal throwaway. Like, literally throw that shit away.
They did that, like, chapter system.
Yeah, and they do the same... Excuse me. They do the same thing here and it's horseshit. It doesn't fucking work.
Okay.
That's a mess. So I didn't really play that, so I'm really only talking about the multiplayer here. But I was in the camp of time to kill is a little cheap. Like, you don't have a lot of time to react. And in a game like Rainbow Six or Call of Duty, that works very, very well because A, there's less players, and B, it's a very congested map. In Rainbow Six, it's literally like counter-terrorists like clearing rooms, which that shit's over in seconds. Like, it's usually 5 or 6 shots and one of the 2 parties is dead. Yeah. And that's it. And with Call of Duty, which I don't, especially modern Call of Duties, in my personal opinion, are garbage. They're just made to cash in as much as possible and get like 12-year-old kids hopped up on Adderall and Mountain Dew, like excited about killing each other. So the pace needs to be really fast for gamers who just eat fucking Cheetos and drink Mountain Dew. No offense, but that's really the demographic of the game. You can look at their advertisement. It's normally paired with Mountain Dew and Cheetos. Yeah. Sorry. But that works for people who are very twitchy, and so Call of Duty works for that. The way that Battlefield series usually works is it's a lot more, I dare say, tactical, even though people will probably stick their noses up at that, where you feel like a commander and you feel like an actual soldier on the front line. And it's like, okay, I'm going to move from cover to cover to cover to cover to cover. And if I understand the way that all the guns work and how cover works and how kind of real world like Battlefield positions work, like if you understand how flanking works really well or pincering works really well and you can coordinate that with your team, you're probably going to be pretty good at Battlefield. Cool. And of all online games, I'm really good at Halo for whatever fucking reason. I'm really good at like modern Call of Duty games, even though I don't like them. I find them very boring. I'm good at that, and I'm very good at Battlefield. I am a good Battlefield player, and I've been playing Battlefield since I was a little kid. I've been playing Battlefield since 1942 or 1941. When was the first one that I played? I played it when I was like 6 years old. So I wasn't very good at it back then. But I've been playing Battlefield, at least online, like heavily since at least Bad Company, like original Bad Company, right? That's a long time to be playing Battlefield. That's a lot of Battlefield games and all the DLC. So I know my way around a Battlefield game. The way that Battlefield 5 plays before the update was very much like Call of Duty Modern Warfare, the first one, which, if you were super into that game like I was, actually not bad. Like, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, COD 4 was a solid fucking game. It was the best. Yeah. It was the best Call of Duty in the series. No fucking doubt. I don't want to hear any bullshit about how Black Ops was good. It wasn't. It wasn't nearly as rock solid as the multiplayer for COD 4.
Right.
And so if you're into that, I think you'll actually find Battlefield 5 is good for you. But as someone who came directly from Battlefield 1, which was one of my favorite Battlefield games since Bad Company 2, at least since Bad Company 2. Coming from that, very disappointing because the maps are a lot smaller. They look really big, but there's a lot of stuff that you're not going to be able to use because you can't get there in time. Like, you'll get killed way before you're able to, like, use any of the environments to your advantage. Use any of the weapons, like, on the map to your advantage. Like, if you get on a mounted gun, you're fucked, really. Like, in most Battlefield games, you're usually fucked if you get on a mounted gun, but with Battlefield 1, like, I did some serious damage with machine guns. And it was in those moments that I really felt like, wow, this really feels like World War One. I'd never fought in World War One, and everyone who did is dead. But as far as video games go, Battlefield 1 felt like a World War One video game. You had your gas mask on. There's mustard gas. There's flares. People are charging in with bayonets and stabbing each other. You know, there's slow firing weapons, a lot of revolvers, a lot of single action, a lot of bolt action rifles and stuff like that.
Cool.
Battlefield 5 is a World War II video game that feels nothing like World War II. I've only gotten actually one of those moments. And it was actually an awesome fucking moment, but it was so fleeting. I don't get that at all. None of the maps look really cool, but they don't feel like World War II maps. They just, people are just rushing all over the place and running all over the place. It doesn't feel like World War II. Yeah. Like, the way that Battlefield 1 played is you really did feel like you were on a front line. And if you were defending a position, everyone was prone. You had machine gunners and snipers, and everyone was just mowing each other down. And the way that you won against that was either through superior numbers, and you just got lucky, which actually happened in World War I, or you were able to maneuver and flank and use grenades and gas to break up the lines and push in. Yeah. It feels like World War I. World War II was fought in kind of the same way. I mean, there was a lot of front lines in World War II and pushing and pulling and stuff like that. Yeah. It's not like that at all. It's just a lot of running around. There's no lines. You're constantly getting killed, like, on your own spawn points and stuff like that. The weapons don't really feel, like, authentic at all. They sound like garbage. Like, really? Coming from Battlefield 1, like, a gun sounded like a gun. It had some heft to it. If you pulled the trigger on, like, the Lee Enfield, like, it jumped, you know, and you felt it in, like, the recoil of the controller and everything like that. Like, there are some guns in Battlefield 5 that sound really good. Like, mostly the pistols. Surprisingly, all the pistols in the game actually sound, like, pretty good. Cool. But the machine guns sound like someone put a bunch of paper clips in, like, a coffee can, is just, like, shaking it around. Like, it really sounds like shit. And the game looks like shit, too. Yeah. The graphics look like dog shit. There's one map in particular that takes place in France or something, but it's a big field of... There's lots of big fields of grain or grass or something like that. Okay. And the graphics that they used, the way that they did the grass was they obviously had a paintbrush like setting in their engine. I'm sorry, I'm not too technical with game design in particular, but I do kind of know how it works. They obviously had some paintbrush in their engine that just did grass or whatever texture they're doing. Right. And whoever did it just went back and forth. And you can tell because like wild grass doesn't grow like that. Like you can look at it and if you look at it from a certain angle, every single grain is like lined up in a row. You can like look down rows of like wild grass. And it's flat. It's 2D. They don't, with really good games nowadays, like if you walk up to a plant, it's like a 3D plant, you know? Doesn't, with old school games, if you just turned like one way, it would just like follow you kind of around like a painting with like his eyes that follow you around. It looks like that. And it shouldn't. And when you're crawling through the grass, it looks like dog shit. And from afar, everything looks terrible. Huh. There are something, it's like inconsistent. So there's some levels with snow, and I'm talking a long time, I know. But there's some levels with snow where you can walk up on this, like from a distance, the snow looks beautiful. But the second you walk up on it, it looks terrible. It like, I don't know how to explain it, but it looks like melted ice almost. And that sounds like appealing, but it doesn't. It looks terrible. Like it looks very granular almost, but not, I can't describe it. But on the other hand, there's maps that take place in North Africa with sand, and the sand looks really bad from far away, but if you go up close to it, it's like the most beautiful thing in the game. I sat there for like 5 minutes just like looking at the sand as like bullets were whizzing over my head and being like, wow, man, I can like count individual grains. Like it looks really fucking good. And the footprints in it look really good and everything. Like it's inconsistent. And the same thing with weapons. Like I said, like some of the weapons sound great, some of the weapons don't. Yeah. But there's one part in particular that like, it was kind of spooky how authentic it was to what actually like kind of looks like in real life. Okay. Because I don't know war, but I do know what like gunpowder smells like. Or if you live in a state that like allows fireworks, like M80s or something like that. I don't know if you've ever blown up an M80 before, but you smell like cordite. Like you have that kind of like burnt, like sulfur smell, and it kind of singes your nostrils a little bit when it hits you. But in the game, if you're a scout sniper, you can use the flare gun, and what that does is you shoot it, and it allows everybody to like see the enemy positions on the radar, shit like that, right? Nobody really uses them anymore for some stupid reason, but I was fighting or something like that, and one of them whizzed past my head, and I've had model rockets and stuff use the same propulsion system, right? And it like I had my headphones on and they were on full blast, and it whizzed past my head and it landed in the snow right in front of me, and it went psst, and just popped right in front of me and did that. Like it sounded really, and for a brief millisecond I got that smell of cordite like in my nose. No kidding. Like a brief second. That's cool. Went and I smelt it like I did like when I blew up an M80, and I was like, whoa, that was actually like really cool. If they could find a way to replicate that for the rest of the game, fix what the fuck is wrong with it, like the time to kill, then they would have a good game. They tried to do that, and the community got pissed. So everyone was like, time to kill's too short. You need to make the time to kill more like Battlefield 1 so that we can maneuver more in the game. They did that, and they were like, cool, we fixed the time to kill. Now it takes 5 body shots and 3 headshots instead of 2 body shots and 1 headshot or whatever, right? Okay. And people got pissed. I don't know why, because the game played way fucking better that way. Really? You actually got to move around, and so this isn't coming from someone who sucks at I don't suck at Battlefield. I'm not gonna hide that. I'm pretty good at it. Even Battlefield 5, my KD ratio is worse. But I'm still almost always in the positive, and I'm almost always in the top 3 for my team, if not the game. I've gotten MVP for the entire game, 64 players. I was the best for the game. I've gotten that at least 5 or 6 times in the week that I played. I would have been a lot more if I was playing Battlefield 1. I'm just being honest. Yeah. But my KD would be in a game of Battlefield 1, if I did like an entire game of Conquest or something like that, or Frontlines, I would maybe have like 64 kills and 11 deaths. Very good. Respectable. I'm sure there are plenty of people that probably have higher. I'm not saying I'm the best. I'm just saying I know my way around a battlefield. Right. In Battlefield 5, say I was number 1 on the team, number 1 in the game even, I would maybe have like 29 kills and like, I don't know, 19 deaths. Oh, really? A lot less. Still positive, but the gap is like a lot tighter. Yeah. And it just, I spend a lot of time dead in that game, on the floor waiting for a medic to come over and try and revive me. And when they fixed it, quote unquote, it played just a lot better, but people got fucking pissed and started like yelling at them on Twitter and stuff like that. Yeah. And eventually they pulled it and they're like, sorry guys, we didn't get it right. Like, we talked about this before the podcast. Like, right. I'm sick of this. I'm really tired of every time something doesn't go slightly everybody's way. The people who are disappointed just kick and shout and scream until it goes back to the way that makes them more comfortable. Yeah.
Vocal dissenters have changed the way creative people do everything. And for the worst. For the worst. And a lot of people, our generation, who are more liberal, will like to point at people on the other side of the aisle and be like, well, you just want things to go back the way they were. Man, we do that shit all the time for stuff we don't like. All the time. Yeah. And so it's just like this hypocrisy. I don't know, man. It sucks. And then after that happened, I played one more round, like one more match of Battlefield after they changed the TDK back to original, and I was like, this is exactly what it was before. Now it's the same game again. It might even be worse. I don't know, because I knew what it was to be good. I knew how it tasted before, and now I'm back to this crap. Like, I put it down. I'm like, whatever, I'll check in like a month and see like what they come up with.
Yeah.
Damn, man.
Really disappointing. Yeah. And that's not the only game, man. Like, some people got angry about the Sam Raimi Spider-Man costume thing that was dropped in Spider-Man 4. There's a couple other video games that around the same time, like Fortnite, I mean, is having problems right now. I mean, they're getting sued, so it's not really like everyone's fault, but it fucking sucks, like, making art now. It seems like such a chore, and it shouldn't be. It should be the most liberating thing we as a society do, but it is probably one of the most taxing things to be right now as like an artist.
Yeah.
I feel for him, man. It sucks.
Yeah, me too. Well, to take us out, I'm excited to do our year-end podcast. We're gonna put our heads together and figure out kind of what we want to do to sort of do like a year in review episode, and talk about some of our favorite things and kind of go out on a little bit of an up note.
Yeah.
I'm excited to do that, and I think that this conversation is going to be part of that. All our opinions in relation to community opinion, and what it was very hard to find something that emerged out of the ether, was received with unanimous praise, and then survived and lasted.
Yeah.
And I think that was hard. Like, you talk about, like, not that great a year for movies. I saw more movies this year than I have any year in my life. And I agree. Like, it was hard to find something that was...
Can you think of something right now that you can be, like, second place contender to what we just watched, the Spider-Man movie? What's your second place? If you had to take a stab at it.
Personally? Or
Yeah, no, personally.
8th grade.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's
8th grade.
That's actually pretty good. Yeah.
I loved 8th grade.
Yeah, I still haven't seen it.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. Like, I have a pending, like, top 10 movie list that I feel fine about.
Yeah, I feel like it's going to be hard for me to, like, pull 10 from what I've seen. I saw a lot of bad movies this year. Yeah. Just because I was like, I want to see what shit, like, I can talk about on the podcast,
It's the kind where there's going to be, like, 2 or 3 that I remember for a long time. Mm-hmm. But then the movies, honestly, like 3, 4 through 10 are gonna be like, yeah, those were like good B pluses.
Yeah, right. Jesus, what the hell happened?
I like went into the theater and like had a good time.
Yeah.
But man, if I never watched those again,
I'd be fine.
I'd be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think all that's gonna crystallize when we do our next episode.
Yeah, when we really like sit down and like write it out. I don't know why, but the only other movie I'm thinking of right now is Sicario 2, which was really bad.
Oh, no.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Well, good good year for video games, though, I'll say that.
Yeah, great gaming year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Probably the best gaming year since, like, 2008.
Yeah, but even for all its disappointments, like, this was also the year that gave us Battlefield 5, Far Cry 5, Fallout 76.
Oh, fuck.
There were so many...
I still haven't played it. Do you want to do that together? Do you want to like sit down and like boot it up together and just go through like 2 hours of it together?
Yeah. Let's pick a day when I'm still here. And we'll do all that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. There's so many video games that come out. There's always going to be like flops, but I mean, this is also the year of. Didn't Cuphead come out earlier this year, or was that late?
I think that was last year.
Fuck. Well, I mean.
But major franchise releases.
Major franchise releases. And 2019 is gearing up to be a pretty goddamn good year for games, too. Like, I'm enjoying where we're at video game-wise. I'm definitely getting a fucking PlayStation 4.
Yeah,
I need to. I need to play Horizon. I need to play God of War. And I need to play...
Spider-Man.
Fuck.
I want to play fucking Spider-Man.
I do. I want to sling some web, man. I haven't played a Spider-Man game since I was, like, 8. You know?
Yeah.
It's time. The time has come.
Yeah. All right, well, that'll do it for this episode of Do This Thing On. Thanks for joining us, everyone. If you want to find more of my stuff, including some top 10 things I did for work, you can go to relevantmagazine.com or follow me on Twitter at Tyler Daswick. Amelia, where can people find you?
People can find us. YouTube, as always, Do This Thing On or Ditto. I think this is episode 36.
Nice.
36 episodes. I'm kind of proud of ourselves.
Yeah,
when we get to 100, we'll buy a stripper or something. That's the centennial. So sorry, I'm totally fucking frazzled right now. It's like almost midnight.
We're also on SoundCloud.
Yeah, we're on SoundCloud, and eventually we will be on iTunes, but we need to sit down and discuss that one-on-one to really hammer out when we'll get there. And, of course, Facebook, you can follow us at Ditto, all capital letters, or Dude Is This Thing On. So join the page.
That'll do it for this episode. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone.
Have a good one, guys.